Hey guys, this is Jenna with River Willow Design, and this is a tutorial on how I made this weave around this gorgeous pendant. For this weave, you will need 18 gauge round wire, 20 gauge round wire. You'll also need wire cutters, a pair of pliers, and I also like to use silicone pliers. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut my 18 gauge wire. I did about 13 inches on this one. This is going to be the base wire. This is definitely a bonus to have. These are wire straighteners. You just put your wire through this little gadget and pull your wire through, and then it's going to have your wire nice and straight, which makes it so much easier to work with. Now that my 18 gauge wire is nice and straight, I'm going to go and cut my 20 gauge wire. You will need 4 pieces of 20 gauge wire, and I cut each piece to 29 inches. And the length of your 20 gauge wire is all going to depend on how long you need this weave to be. And now I'm going to go through and straighten each piece of this 20 gauge wire. Now that they're nice and straight, I'm going to find the middle point of this wire, and now I'm going to attach it to my base wire. So when you're attaching this to your 18 gauge wire, you're going to want to leave yourself a little bit of a tail, so then you can attach this to your frame. And keeping your wires nice and flat, holding it with your thumb, you're going to wrap the 20 gauge wire around 2 times. This is going to keep it nice and secure around your base wire. It does take a little bit of maneuvering to get this 20 gauge wire attached to your base wire, but once it is connected, now you're ready to start your weave. When you start the weave, you're going to want to make sure that you're holding the end here nice and tight with your thumb, making sure that your weaving wires are nice and flat, they're not crossing. You're going to bend the one side over the top of the base wire, and then you're going to bend it underneath the base wire. And then once you bend it underneath, you're going to take your silicone pliers or your pliers, and you're going to tighten it up so this weave stays in place, just like so. And then you're going to take the other side, well, again, holding this still with your thumb, you're going to take the other wires on the other side and wrap it around and do the same thing, going over top of the base wire this time. And then you're going to bend it underneath that base wire and bend it around, and then tighten it again with your pliers as well. And now you're going to repeat this process all the way down the base wire. And the trick is keeping everything nice and still with your thumb and making sure those 4 weaving wires are nice and flat, and then securing it with your pliers after each twist. Your thumb will get a little bit sore doing this one as you're twisting it around, but the end result is so worth it. Now I'll quit talking for a second here so you guys can just watch me twist these weaving wires around the base wire. The weave is now almost completed. I did make a basic frame off camera here for my ocean jasper stone. And I'm going to put the stone on now, and then take the weave and wrap the weave around to make sure that we have enough length that it's going to hold this stone in place. It was a little tricky to film me measuring this out with the camera between my hands, so I had to do a little bit of that off camera to make sure we had the right length. And now that I have the proper length, I'm going to cut these weaving wires off. So once you cut these off, you're going to want to make sure that you're tucking the ends in so you don't have any sharp points that are going to stick out on your pendant. Make sure you use your pliers and you give them a really good tuck and a squeeze. And now it's time to attach our weaving wire to our frame. Also, when you're making these weaves, you're not going to want to make them super tight. You want these little tiny gaps throughout the weave so you can attach this weave to your frame. And to attach it to the frame, I'm going to take some 28 gauge round wires, and I took 7 wires, and I'm going to put them through the little holes in this weave, and I'm going to wrap it around twice. And then I'm going to work my way all the way around this weave until all 7 of these wires are attached to the weave, and then I can start attaching it to my frame. The anchor wires are so important. It's what's going to help attach your weave to your frame, and then your weave is what's going to keep your stone in place because you don't want your stone falling out. But here's what it looks like with all the anchor wires on. And now I'm going to measure it one more time against my stone, and then I'm going to take the one side of the weaving wire and I'm going to wrap it around the top of the bail, and then I'm going to tuck the tail in, and it's going to secure the top of this weave to the frame. And now that the one side is secure, I'm going to pop my stone in and tuck it underneath the weave. And then I'm going to take the other side of my weave and I'm going to wrap it around the bail as well. I'm going to wrap it around 2 times, and then I'm going to use my wire cutters and snip the end and tuck it into the bail and closing it tight with my pliers so it's nice and secure. It takes a little bit of maneuvering, but you want to make sure the top of this weave is good and secure because you do not want your weave falling off your frame. And now that we're nice and secure on the top, we're going to take the anchor wires and we are going to secure the rest of the weave to the rest of the frame. So what you're going to do is you're going to start at the bottom here and you're going to feed the wire through the bottom, attaching it to the frame. And I like to wrap it around 3 or 4 times. As I'm anchoring these wires, I like to alternate back and forth, securing it, not doing the whole left side and the whole right side, so I know that it's nice and tight. Also, if you find it still a little bit loose, you can go back in and add more anchor wires. Now to go in and cut the tails off these anchor wires. Each tail that you cut, you want to go in with your pliers and you want to really tuck that end in. And then when you're done, you want to run your finger around the outside of the frame. If you find any pokey wires, you want to go in again with your pliers and make sure you're really tucking those in. This is bare copper wire, so to get that beautiful antique look like this other pendant here, we are now going to have to oxidize it. And to oxidize it, we're going to use a bowl, liver of sulfur, some steel wool, and some hot water. You only need a tiny bit of liver of sulfur. You're going to put that in your bowl, run some super hot water, and then pop your pendant in it. And it only takes a few seconds to oxidize, and then you buff it out with your steel wool. And there you have the finished product. Thank you guys so much for watching my very first tutorial with River Willow Design.